Hello and welcome to this edition of A Conversation With. I'm Jim Marshall of the New Bedford Cable Network, and today we are talking running. We are talking the New Bedford Half Marathon, the 2023 running of this race. Dan McCarthy, race director, is with us. Ashley Payne, the tourism director, is with us because it's sort of intertwined with each other here. Lots of runners, lots of people visiting the city on March 19th. Thanks for coming in, both of you.
Thank you for having us.
Good to be here.
It's a good day for the city on that day. The one thing, too, and I'll start with you because, I mean, I've always thought, having run the race and been in the city, it's sort of like the start of the year as far as the tourism year. I know tourism, and you and I have talked about it, is a year-round thing. But when you look at the calendar year and the events in the city, this is sort of like, for lack of a better word, the kickoff, if you will.
Yeah, that's exactly how we consider it. It's the kickoff to tourism for the city. It's a great event that brings so many people all across the city to watch the race and then to enjoy afterwards.
Do you, in a sense, is that a marketable thing for you when you say tourism in the industry? Is that something that you sell, the half marathon, as a tourism thing?
It is. So sometimes people really just focus on things like attractions like museums and things like that. But events and things like the half marathon really are considered tourism. And it's really bringing people to the downtown area and across the city. And afterwards, they have the opportunity to enjoy so many of our restaurants and places to go as well.
And the one thing, probably out of any event in the city, I mean, you're right, this event takes the entire city. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can be in the north end, the south end, wherever, and the half marathon's there for a part of the day.
Yeah, and you'll see people all over watching. It's really great to see the crowds.
You have done this race as director for a long time now. It's old hat for you, piece of cake, right? You just roll out the book.
Well, I mean, we're so lucky. The Friendly Sons of St. Patrick have done a great job since 2009 as the organization that hosts the race. And so many of the original founding members of the race committee are still active volunteers, which is wonderful. So it just makes for an easy transition every year when we start planning. It's people who've come back who've really been involved for 25, 35, 45 years. And that institutional knowledge makes it a lot easier. I mean, we used 1,000 volunteers on race day, and it's a big, well-oiled machine. But because of the fact that people love it and they love coming back and they're passionate about it, it makes it a lot easier.
I love what the announcer's at the end, and he's always saying the Great American Race.
American Road Race,
yeah. And it's kind of like, well, yeah, it is kind of cool. I mean, the one thing, and you and I have talked about this, is it's the timing of the race is important because there are a lot of people that are doing the Boston Marathon. Mm-hmm. And it's 4 weeks. It's kind of like what I used to say. It's your midterm exam right now to see where you stand.
Exactly.
And that draws people.
It does. It really, there's a couple of components of the race as a really well laid out and designed course by the original race directors and the race committee. It has a challenging hill at Hathaway Road at mile 3, but it gives you a rewarding downhill from like 3.5 all the way down to 7 to almost 8 when you hit on West Rodney French. You have a challenging peninsula run, which depending upon the weather that day, you could have a nice run out and a tough run back in with the wind. And then our version of Heartbreak Hill, which is County Street on the way back up to Kempton. It is a gradual hill for well over a mile. Yep. So you get rewarded when you make the right-hand turn at the KFC with a downhill sprint, and then finishing in front of the City Hall on a straightaway. But you really do get to know, is your speed work in check? Are you okay with the hills? How's your endurance? And it was designed 4 weeks out from Boston, and we would never move it. It's always the third Sunday in March, and we do it at 11 o'clock, which is really unique in the running world. Most cities, and we're so grateful to the city of New Bedford and the residents who allow us to do this, because most road races, especially at the half marathon and marathon distance, take off at like 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. in the morning.
Right.
But by allowing the race to start at 11, it allows people from further afield to come in for the day. So we have people from all over New England coming in. Many are staying in the hotels both Saturday and Sunday night. But you could come in from Western Massachusetts and still run with us on race day. So you can. It opens up the opportunities, and only because of the fact that we have an 11 o'clock start.
Road races are difficult.
I hear. I don't actually.
You wouldn't know. Organizing. Why is this race successful? because a lot of races will stop after 5, 10, even 50, they don't last long. I mean, this race has been around for so long. Why do you think this race has survived when others don't?
Well, a couple of things, and I think that its longevity itself is a draw, right? So it's not running can be cyclical, and endurance events can come and go, and things can become more popular. So for a while, we were on an upswing in participation, and then there was a little bit of a lull because things like obstacle course races became really popular for a while, or people started doing more high-intensity workouts like CrossFit or things like that, and might have stepped away from running. But the core runners, the people who are going to run, especially, we have this amazing anchor in Boston on Patriots Day. So we have this goal that people are trying to do, this hardest road race in America to get into, and 60 miles down the road is the greatest training run for it. And there's a lot of history behind it. I mean, we've had the women's world record was set here in 1989 by Ingrid Christensen. Jeff Smith, 2-time Boston Marathon winner, is still the course record holder. And we're coming back from COVID, which has been a big setback to the event in terms of participation and just that gap of 2 years. But what we're going to be doing is bringing back like some of the classics in the future. We're a big draw for some was the chowder and fish sandwiches,
right?
And we had done that for 40 years, but because of COVID, we're still not at a place where we can come back and do that this year. But that's something that we're looking to do next year. Bring it back. People are just used to it. People have volunteered. People grew up here running in their 20s and 30s, and now their kids are running it in their 20s and 30s, and they're there volunteering. So it's having been around is helping protect its future.
Does that help you from your standpoint, the longevity?
It does. So being able to say that this has happened for so many years is really a great draw. And it also, word of mouth is one of the best pieces of marketing that you could have. So with families who have had this as a continuing tradition for them, it's great. You can tell your friends to come check it out, to run with you. So it really is just boosting those numbers. And I think as we work together in the future too, we can help to grow this to be a great event as well.
And it's funny, you mentioned COVID, and it's interesting because I know Father's Day, and you've gone to Father's Day. They didn't, last year they didn't have the 10K for the first time.
Right.
Other races, those 2 years, Acushnet doesn't have and Acushnet was around for a long time. They didn't have their race last year either. So it's amazing that despite COVID, the half marathon has survived.
And I think that there was we were the very first of the races to cancel.
The week is literally like COVID hit, and then a week later we were scheduled to run.
All of the planning had taken place. So if you had an October race, and in early March they told you, the governor says you can't have any social gathering of 25 or more people, then you don't really have to do a lot of planning. But we had put in motion the race and really were wondering how we were going to be able to pull it off. And then when you're told you can't do it, it was a little bit it was a little bit of a gut punch to the committee. And then we took the year where we knew we wouldn't be able to have the 2021, and we took a breather and just started to think about what are we going to do when we can come back?
Yeah.
And people got really excited, and we had a bunch of meetings where people were like, if we get the ability, we're going to do it. And we did, and we got really, really fortunate. We had a great turnout. We had a great day. We're still wiping off some of the cobwebs and the dust from the 2-year lag, but we're excited about this year, and we're excited about the future of the race.
It was interesting because I think I had told you on the phone that, it's night and day, but I know that the turkey trot in Fairhaven finally, this past year, they finally got the number that they had pre-COVID.
Right.
2 years it took, and they finally got over 750 or something like that, which is where they used to be before COVID.
Right.
But it took a couple years to get where they wanted to be as far as the race goes.
Right. It's going to take us some time too. And we're very active with USA Track and Field New England, and we have been extremely fortunate that their membership has voted the half marathon part of their annual road racing Grand Prix series. And that brings 600 runners or more to the race. We've been fortunate enough for more than 19 years in a row to have been participating in it. In 2017, they created a new rule, which would be instituted in 2018, which was any race that had the Grand Prix for 3 consecutive years would have to take a year off. We've been fortunate. They let us come back in 2022, even though we had it in 2018, 2019, 2020. We would have had it in 2020 if it weren't for the race being canceled. So this is the year we have to sit out.
Yeah.
And last weekend, or 2 weekends ago, we were at the Run Show USA conference in Boston, and so many of the members of USA Track and Field came up to our booth and said, "You'll be back next year. We want you back. You know, we're really excited about New Bedford. We love the race." And it was great, and that was a great opportunity. Ashley and I had worked together on putting together some of the materials that we'd be handing out, and people are excited. People are excited about you. It's not just the run, right? So people come to a trade show, and it's maybe the wife's a runner and the husband's not, or vice versa, and they say things like, "What was I going to do for 2 hours during the race? I discovered the Whaling Museum, or I discovered the Art Museum, or I did." I discovered, Freestones is reopened, like that was a big haunt for years after the race.
Right.
Prior to a lot of the new restaurants that have opened in the last 10 or 15 years, there are people who are like, "We heard Freestones is back," and it's like, okay, yeah, like there's tradition,
Right.
So I think that we're going to work really well together, and I think it's a really great opportunity to market the city, to market, not just coming down on race weekend, but coming back.
So that's something that we talked about too, is that this event brings in so many people from outside of New Bedford, especially the number of runners that aren't local to this area.
Right. Yep.
So we're viewing this as an opportunity to say, you're coming down for the race, but there's also so many things that you can experience while you're here. So why not extend your stay an extra night, or just hang around for a few hours afterwards and see what the city has to offer?
How important is it to get the cooperation, though, of the business community and all that to make that happen? Because it doesn't happen if you don't get it.
It is very important. So we're starting that conversation with a lot of the business owners, and we've been talking very closely with the hotels as well to make sure that they're all set to welcome these runners and the people that are coming to visit the city, to say, hey, this is coming up. Make sure you're open, you're well staffed, and that we're ready to welcome people to New Bedford on that day. Sunday can be a tricky day, especially in the city where we survive off of small businesses, and so that's a day where a lot of people are home with their families. But knowing that this is such a big event and it brings in so many people, it's really important to kind of be there and welcome everyone to the city. Because
it really is a great day. I mean, there's no question about it. Everybody's happy that day, and the great thing about the course is throughout the course there's a good crowd. Even in the South End, in pockets, not all the time, because sometimes that wind is just brutal. But even in the peninsula, there are pockets of a crowd that are out there cheering the runners. The weather's got to be great.
Right.
But it's very little. There's very little time during the race when there's nobody around.
Right.
And that's huge.
There's such a great energy that day too. So last year was my first year coming down to watch the race, and just hearing everybody cheer all the runners and to have people just chat with the people next to them. It was really great post everything happening with shutdowns, to really have people just gather together and enjoy this event together.
Do you feel better this year because, like you said, you had a couple of years where it didn't happen?
Right.
And last year was your first COVID one, and talking to you last year, I know you were kind of nervous because it hadn't happened. You really didn't know what to expect. How were you feeling this year now that the first one's out of you've got it out of the way?
So it's like the coolest thing I've ever done, right? That day is the best day of the year for me.
It's probably the easiest day because all
the work stuff. And now I'm a first-time dad, so I had my daughter with me last year, and she's a little bit older. She can walk now, so she can participate a little bit more. And so I don't get worried about whether it's going to go on or not, right? Like I know that at 11 o'clock sharp, the air horn's going to blow and the runners are going to take to the streets. I know that the police detail is going to do an amazing job closing the course so that the runners are safe. I know that everybody, at DPI has put in all the work that they can to make sure that the course is as clean and as safe for the runners as possible. I know that our volunteers are going to do a wonderful job. I get nervous about things that are out of my control, the weather, right? And our start-finish coordinator, Dave Richard, is our resident weatherman, and he'll start telling me like 15 days out, and it's like, it's great, but it's also a little more stressful. You're like, but But it's the third Sunday in March, so the weather's going to be out of our control. But even in winters where we've had tremendous amounts of snowfall, so much unlike this year, we've always seemed to have a break on that day for a couple of hours. You know, like sometimes it'll be sunny at the start and then snowing by 2 o'clock.
I was going to say, I've done the race when it's been sunny on Hathaway Road going up the hill, and you get to the peninsula, and there's a snow flurry at the same day, and you're like, okay, well.
We like to say it's the luck of the Irish.
Don't take your jacket off. That's what I always tell people. Like, if they're like, "Yo, we peel off our clothes." I'm like, my advice is keep it, wrap it around you, because
hold it in your hand.
The south end could be a little chilly.
Yeah.
But
there's one of the great things is people ask you the silliest questions, and these are like serious people who just kind of will say things like, "Is there anything you can do about the wind in the south end? Like a curtain?" Like no. But and it's just, you finish in downtown, right at City Hall Plaza. It's a loop course, same start, same finish, and there's a lot of excitement. So it's a really fun day.
The interesting thing too with the course, you kind of touched on it briefly. I mean, the first mile is good, but then you have, I mean, there are 2 significant hills, but you've got a series of 3 hills in that first 3 miles.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so Nauset Street, rolling up. There's a little bit at Hathaway when it crosses by Shawmut.
Yeah.
And then
the bigger one.
The bigger one.
So it's like, okay, it's gradual. The people don't realize that. It's like, yeah, it's a little one, littler, little bigger, and then the big one on Hathaway.
Yeah, my wife was running a few years back, and 2 girls were running next to them, and they had gone just to Nauset Street, and where the first water stop is, and one of the girls said to the other one, "Oh, this is that first hill we've heard of," and my wife chuckled and was like, "No, wait a minute, like wait till you get to mile 3." But it's I say this as a non-runner, it's relatively short, and then you're rewarded with a great downhill. So
the funniest line I've ever heard in the race is running up County Street one year, and kind of like your wife here in that conversation, a person next to me was like, "Who the hell put this hill on this? Who the hell put the hill in this course at this point in time?"
Yeah. It's your heartbreak hill.
It'll break you. As far as for you, Dan touched upon it. I mean, you've got people, a lot of people staying on Saturday too. I mean, this is really a weekend. Hotel space. Then, I mean, I know you're advertising that, but it's got to fill up pretty quick, I would imagine, too.
Yeah, and the hotels are prepared. They know that this event is coming. They've done a lot of great work with Dan as well and the committee, so they're ready. And we're working on putting together some little welcome bags just to welcome everyone to the city and have some information to help everyone navigate around downtown and just know what to expect for race weekend.
Saturday night's pretty busy, too.
Oh, absolutely. Because we have registration and number pickup from 12 to 4.
Right.
And so a lot of people have, I mean, there are bus loads. There are teams that come in from Vermont where they'll bring an entire bus full of people and they'll stay at a hotel so that they'll all go to dinner together.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I mean, it's not just a Sunday thing. This is really a weekend event because people will come in on the Saturday to get their numbers and then go out at night.
Mm-hmm.
And we have vendors who come down who look forward to the race every year because it's the one time a year they're going to get really great Portuguese food, right? So they're really excited about that, and it's just great Saturday. It's great Sunday. There's great atmosphere, and I think that the city really puts its best foot forward. Like every department that's involved does an amazing job.
People don't realize how many departments are involved.
It is an unbelievable undertaking on behalf of the city, and as a committee, we couldn't do it without their support. So we're really, really fortunate, and things have gone really, really well. And we're hoping that, knock on wood, that continues.
From you said it was the first time you went last year. What did you see last year to, I don't want to say to change, but to really implement for this year? Is there anything from a tourism point that you wanted to emphasize this year that maybe we didn't do last year?
So I watched it on the outskirts, so I wasn't in the downtown area, but for this year we have some roaming musicians that'll provide some entertainment while people are standing and watching the race, waiting for the runners to go by. And we're also just really working on the outreach prior to race weekend so that people are set up for a guide on best places to watch the race from, where to go after the race or things to enjoy the night before. So it's not only for the runners that are coming into town or their family and friends that are coming, but also for residents to let them know, like, hey, here's some of the street closures that you might expect. Here's some great places to watch from, and here's what's going on after the race as well.
And the great thing with the course is because it's a loop course, if you're in the loop, you can go anywhere.
Right.
You can see somebody at the 3 mile mark. You can go and head down and see them, at Buttonwood Park and then down the peninsula.
You can literally walk from the start to Buttonwood Park, which is about the 5 mile mark, in time to see like your loved one or friend run, and then walk back to the finish line and catch them there. So you can see them, at the start, halfway almost, and then at the finish, just by walking. It's a good exercise. But
yeah, it's a good day. I think people want to know too, security-wise. You've touched upon it, but the city does a lot. The race committee does a lot. There are police. There are paramedics. There's safety people there.
Yes.
You've done it every year.
So it's particularly in the aftermath of the Boston Marathon bombing, right? So traffic safety, runner safety has always been paramount, and we use well over 100 police officers on a detail to shut down the streets to vehicular traffic so the runners can get around. But there's been some big changes to the start-finish line area post the terrible incident in Boston, and there's a bigger police presence on City Hall Plaza all the way from like Elm to Union. There's no backpacks allowed. There are race officials will have security credentials that'll allow them to get in and out of where they need to go. But we fence off the street, but leave the sidewalks open. So you can get in and around up to as far as William Street towards the start. So you can go to the Baker, or you can go to the Art Museum, or you can work your way down by Paradise McPhee Gallery and get to No Problemo. But there are just some things like don't bring a backpack, or be prepared that if you have a stroller that they might look at it.
I was surprised last year.
It is.
Bomb sniffing dogs.
Bomb sniffing dogs.
And you're sitting there, I'd never really seen that before.
Yeah, we're really fortunate because there's a lot of organizations that work together within policing, like SEMLAC, the regional SWAT team people. Then there's different divisions of the state police and the Connecticut State Police who bring their dogs in. And it really helps supplement the work that the New Bedford Police Department has to do, and some of the mutual aid organizations. So safety is the most important thing. It's paramount, and hopefully we never have to relive any. Hopefully no race ever has to go through what they went through in Boston. But we're definitely glad that we have the security we do here in New Bedford.
Years ago, the chief of police at the time was telling me that percentage-wise, New Bedford uses more of their police department than Boston does for the Boston Marathon, because he's like, the course is in the city the whole time, never leaves. And Boston is just at the end, really. It's only like the last 3 miles.
Yeah.
Technically, it's in the city limits.
It's definitely a unique course to close. I mean, we're asking a lot of the people of the city. We're asking you to enjoy the day and watch the runners, but the streets are closed for 3 hours. So it takes over 100 of New Bedford's finest to make sure that can happen. And most other races don't do that. So if you could go to another half marathon that might just have, the cars driving by with the runners, and I think that's one of the draws that brings people back to New Bedford every year, is that feeling of I can just go out there and run, because the police do such a great job, and because the residents of the city allow it, and we have the support of the administration.
Oh, it's a totally safe course.
Yeah, so
it's very safe. For businesses that want to get in touch with you right now, we've got a couple minutes left. How can they do that? Because if they have questions about what they can do or what they want to do, how can they get in touch with you, and what are you encouraging them to do?
Sure. Email or phone calls are the best way, or you can always stop by and see us at City Hall. We're right on the first floor next to the clerk's office. But yeah, feel free to give me an email or give us a phone call right in the tourism office.
And what are you encouraging them to do?
Just really being there and having your space open and welcoming all the people that are visiting the city is really great.
And registration-wise, talk a little bit as we wrap up here. People who still have not signed up but want to sign
Sure.
up. It's different this year because you and I were talking about it earlier. And it's good. It's easier now than it ever has been. But sign-ups you need to sign up.
You need to sign up. You can sign up online. You can visit us at newbedfordhalfmarathon.com, and there will be the registration link. We'll take online registration right up till Saturday night, late Saturday night. We will also do in-person from 12 to 4 at the YMCA. We'll have in-person registration on Saturday, and from 8:30 to 10:30 a.m. in-person registration on Sunday, also at the YMCA. So the YMCA is our home base for race weekend, and we'll be there and well staffed for shirt and number pickup for the runners, but also for additional registration.
And key locations, I mean, for runners who are coming in to the city that day. I mean, the lunch.
Yep, that's the post-race meal is also held at the YMCA. The city provides parking. We have, I recommend the Elm Street Garage or the Zeiterion Garage. In the past, when we've had larger race fields, we've extended shuttling in service. I don't know if that's going to be required this year, but there's limited on-street parking in the downtown area. But those garages are great and they're free. The gates are open, so you're welcome there. If you're at home and you want to volunteer, or if you just want to get out and learn more about it, go to the website, shoot us a message, and we're happy to answer any questions you have.
And for people who haven't booked a hotel or whatever, the advice to give them where to look for a hotel and how to do that.
So we have two great hotels right here in the downtown area. We have New Bedford Harbor Hotel. We also have the Fairfield Inn and Suites, which is right on the water. So they both have great accommodations for people coming to visit. And they are aware of Marathon Weekend, so they're ready for reservations.
And they book quick.
They do, yes.
So if you're going to do that, you're probably advised to do it sooner rather than later.
Pick up the phone now or get on the internet.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, that's going to do it for this edition. Best of luck on race day for you. We'll be in touch with you for, other stuff for the year coming up, because this is one day, but we've got more stuff coming up. You and I had talked about that in the fall, so there's a lot coming up next year, or this summer for the city. Everything's coming back, and that's great.
We're so excited.
Yeah, it's really feeling back to normal again. Thanks again for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
That's going to do it for this edition of A Conversation With. I'm Jim Marshall of the New Bedford Cable Network. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.